Hi, it's Anne here, and today's video is my introduction for my Pan That palette for 2023. Like, are we in the future or what, guys? 2023 sounds crazy. So, this year I'm doing things a little differently. Last 2 years I did the NYX palette 3 years ago. I did the Carly Violet palette 2 years ago. Last year was the Chocolate Bar, Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette. This year, we're doing a custom palette. I toyed with not doing this project at all because as I was wrapping up my Pan That palette from last year, I'm like, you know what? I do really struggle with panning eyeshadows. I'm not getting a whole lot of satisfaction out of panning. I feel like I want to use more of my collection and enjoy my collection. And if I finish shadows, that's great, but it's not like a priority for me. So what I decided to do was I built this little companion palette because I feel like a lot of shadows or palettes are missing things at times. And I pulled shadows that I thought would work well with other palettes, but I'm not gonna be like sad if I don't finish any of these. I definitely will hit pan on some of these because they're really small pans, some of these. That was on purpose, again, to feel a little bit of satisfaction. So some of these are from previous palettes and previous projects. Just to kind of run down each one of these. This is a white shade. This is actually the white highlight from the Carly Bible palette that I repressed into an eyeshadow. This is a small pink shade from the Color Workshop quad that I depotted recently. These two are from the NYX Warm Neutrals palette. Again, I repressed them. This one did kind of survive, but then it started cracking, so I just decided to repress it. This one totally fell apart, so I totally repressed that one. This one right here is from the Carly Bible palette, the deluxe edition one, so from 2 years ago. It was one that I didn't finish. This one is Chandelier from NYX, and again, that was in a project where I just tried to hit pan, and I hit pan on it. This is the shade called Pewter from the brand Purinata, which is a Canadian brand. And then this is a shade called Morocco from NYX. They used to have these little books. They looked like little matchstick books that were like travel places. I have two of them. I have this one in Morocco and another one in Transylvania. So that's where I'm going with this. I'm going to swatch these so you can see what they look like. They're really light shades. Some of them, like that pink one, is really, really light. Gonna be tricky to swatch that Carly Bible one as well. There we go. So there's the first four. Hopefully you can see that, like how those will be good to, you know, mix and match with other palettes. If I'm missing like transition shades or brighter shades, Carly Bible one's really hard, really hard to swatch. But we're trying it anyway. Okay. And those are the last four. It's really hard to swatch on camera, but hopefully you can see those and see how that's like. I mean, I could do a look with this, obviously, but that's not the intention. The intention is to sort of use this with other palettes when I'm sort of missing these kinds of shades. And again, I am pulling some of these shades, like here, these are very cool tone shades, kind of on purpose because I'm in a cool tone train right now, and that's where my brain is. And that's one of the reasons why I've decided to do this custom palette, because I can see myself pulling some of these shades out. Actually, I know I will. I will be pulling some shades out and putting in new shades as I go along. And again, it's really not about finishing or even, you know, if I hit pan on stuff, great. If I don't and I pull it out, that's fine too. Like, I don't see myself hitting pan on this guy, like, ever. Just fine. But do I see myself finishing some of these? Yeah, and like the Carly Bible one, like I should be able to finish those at some point. I would like to finish those by the end of the year, but it's not the end of the world if I don't. I have weighed each one of these individually, so I will be weighing them. We'll see how that goes. Again, they're really tiny, so I don't know how that will work. We might have some backwards weights and things, weird stuff go on when they're that small, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, like this is more intended to be a companion palette with other palettes as I use them, and I'm not gonna like break my back over hitting pan or like finishing these shadows. I'll just use them when it makes sense, when I'm missing stuff from other palettes or when I want to pull them in. You'll notice I don't have like a sort of skin tone, my skin tone setting shade, because I wanted to pull one in, but I don't have any like small enough little metal things to stick in there. So I'm gonna use this one for now. This is from the Naked Basics palette. This is the original Naked Basics, like Naked Basics 1. This has already been repressed. It's in the shade WOS, which I don't know what that stands for. I don't know if I want to know what that stands for. But yeah, so this shade here has been repressed. I've weighed this palette. If I get some more of those little metal pans, I'll maybe depot this. I don't know if I'll take it out of the palette or if I'll just like scrape it out and put it in a new, I still have some of those metal pans, empty metal pans that I can use. But yeah, so that's what I'll be using for my eyeshadow palettes, for the panning part for my eyeshadow palette. I am going to do a face palette, if I can find where I put it. Oh, there it is. And I don't know why I picked these palettes, because they're so shiny, and it's hard to like photograph or show on camera. But this guy. So, what I'm going to do with the face palette is I'm probably just going to rotate through my face palettes when I feel like it. I was going to say like quarterly, but I'm going to just do it when I feel like it. Whatever month it is, it comes up, I'm like, I'm fed up with this one, I'm going to move on to another one. I'm just going to rotate through them. So we're going to start off with this guy, because I feel like this guy works for this time of year. This is the e.l.f. Soft and Subtle palette. This is like basically new. I intended to put this in a giveaway at one point, but then I hung on to it for too long and it felt weird putting it in a giveaway, and I was like, oh, I don't know if that's appropriate, so let's just not. So I hang on to it. That's what I'm trying to say. I hung on to it, but I barely used it. The shades are very, very light in this. See if I can, yeah, we'll do it this way, because like you can't see it on my skin unless it's like the lightest part of my skin, because these are super, super light. So that's why I want to kind of use these now, because they're really light, and this is the palest that I ever am. Yeah, you can't even see those. I might just throw up a photo of those. You can still see that that's Morocco. But that's it right there. If you can even see that, I have no idea. They're super light shades. So again, I just kind of want to play with that. But as you can see, like this is brand new. So there's no way I'm hitting pan on any of these anytime soon. I would be shocked. I mean, you never know. Sometimes you start working on a product and you're like, oh, like it starts like going away very quickly. I doubt it. So we're just gonna use this until I feel like not using it. I can see myself using this like January, February, March, and then maybe in like April I will pull in something new. Or maybe I'll keep going with this. I don't know. But I just thought, you know, I just want to use my face palettes. I've kind of learned I'm not a big face palette person. I learned that a few years ago, actually. Pretty much shortly after I think I bought the Hourglass palette. And I've tried to refrain since then from like buying face palettes, because I just know I don't use them. They just sort of sit, I don't say they get lost, but they kind of get lost. They're just not a product I gravitate towards. I don't know why, because the practical side of me is like, this is so super practical, yet I don't use it. I'd prefer to reach for my singles. I can't explain it, but that's what happens. Again, practical for traveling. So I have taken this home with me a few times. I got this late. I got this in 2019. I don't know what month. I want to say it was late 2019, but maybe not. Maybe it was mid 2019. So yeah, like I barely use this guy, but I want to get some use out of it. And that's why I'm not, like again, I'm not focusing on panning, even though this is a pan palette. It's more like using that palette. Using that palette. That's the project, which does not roll off the tongue nearly as nicely as panning that palette. So again, we're keeping it small. We just got some small things going on here, keeping it real. Keeping it more in line with what I think is realistic for me and where I'm going with things. Again, I've talked about this a few times. I'm by the time you see this, I'm on a no-buy. Because I just want to really get to use my products that I have. And again, maybe at some point I will declutter some stuff. Like again, once I go through all my face palettes, maybe I'm just like I don't really like this. Maybe I'll get rid of it. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that is it. That is the introduction for my Pan That palette. Oh, and I guess the other part is, like, last year I did the Pan That palette and I did a palette roulette. I'm not doing a palette roulette this year. What I'm going to do, and I don't know if I'll talk about the palettes in this video because I basically talked about all of my palettes last year, but my plan this year is to just start picking palettes and using them until I'm bored of them, and then pick the next palette. And I kind of want to, once I've picked a palette and used it, put it aside and not pick it again, and then we'll see where we get by the end of the year. Like, what are the palettes that I didn't pick and why? And maybe, again, just maybe it means I need to declutter those palettes or figure out what I'm going to do, like chopping block them or something. But I just kind of want to see what organically I do with my palettes. Like, what palettes are the ones, like, I just filmed. If I look very similar, I just filmed my other video. I tried to take my sweater off and put a different lip on so I don't look exactly the same. But I did just film my Pan That palette, like, roundup. Like, this palette, I really gravitate towards using this palette, and I just kept wanting to pull this palette and use it over and over and over again. I want to see what are those palettes for me, are the ones that I grab and the ones that I really, really like, and what are the ones that, like, I might pull and be like, oh, I wish I didn't pull that. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. I just kind of want to use my collection a little more organically this year in terms of my eyeshadow palettes and see where that takes me. We'll see where we end up, like, maybe in the first 6 months, and then if I'm finding that, you know, I'm not using my palettes the way I wanted to, or I want a little bit more structure, or I want to do something more interesting, I might throw a roulette back in, or like some sort of like organized way of using them. But for now, we're going with the chaotic route and just using what we feel like using. But the one kind of rule, I guess, is when I pull something and use it, I'm gonna put it aside and not pull it again. Like, I want to at least try and keep pulling new things, and not keep going back to the same old ones, like, once I've used it. I hope that makes sense. But again, once I've used it to the point where I really feel like I've used it. So if it ends up being I pull a palette and I end up using one palette for the whole month, like with my panning palettes, then that's what happens. If I end up using 6 palettes that month, then that's what happens. Like, again, I'm really not trying to restrict myself. I just want to see where things go. Let's just let it flow and see what happens. Anyway, if you're interested in this journey with me, please subscribe to my channel. And if you like this video, feel free to give a little thumbs up down below. I hope you are doing well, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye.